Hi there, welcome to Transcona Trailer Sales. Today I'll be walking you through your 2025 Forest River Wildwood 28Dbud. We are just going to start off at the back of the unit. If you notice up top, you are pre-mounted for an observation camera, as well as a Lippert collapsible stair system. Both are going to be great additions to your camper, especially the stair system, so you can get up and check all your seals periodically. And then the observation camera is going to be good for when you're back into your campsite, you know how far to go, or if you have a tight driveway, you don't have to get anybody out behind you. You can just back on up and you'll be able to see quite well. If you'd like to get set up with either of those, just contact the parts department. They'd be more than happy to put together a quote for you. Also located back is going to be your spare tire. And then if you come around to the driver's side, but for the back bumper tube, it is accessible from both sides. You'll be able to pull on that tube. That's going to give you access to the inside of the tube. That's going to be typically where you're going to want to store your sewer hose after your first use. We do have a brand new one located inside the front compartment, which is why it's not in there yet. But after your first use, just storing it inside of there. Reason being, you're gonna keep as much smell out of the unit as possible. Nobody likes that smell. So, and then just pressing that bumper tube back into place so that doesn't come flying off on you, and you're good to go. Next, you do have your standard 30 amp twist lock connection. You just take a note of that notch there. It lines up with this notch on this side. Once you do line that up, you just have to kind of firmly press it into place. You got an 1/8 turn to lock it in. And then you got that threaded collar to really lock it down. If you follow that cord back, you have your standard 30 amp plug end. A lot of campsites should have this and you can plug right on in, but let's say you have the unit at home where your campsite only has 15 amp service, which is just your standard household outlet. We do include that park adapter to go down from 30 amps, but keep it in mind whenever you do that, you are going down in power. So you're not gonna be able to run your air conditioner. Realistically, it is just to run your fridge and your lights. Once you are plugged in, you get that blue light at the top telling you have a successful power source. If that red light were to be on, it's going to be telling you that your source of power is bad and there's no problem with the trailer. A little bit further ahead, you kind of got your water system inlet. So the white connection here, that's going to be your city water connection. So if you're at a site with service, just thread a garden hose in there, turn it on. It's going to pressurize all those lines without the need to run your water pump. You got your 2 cable satellite inlets here in case you were getting set up with that. Then you do have your black tank flush on the right. So the way that works is you do have to have your sewer hose connected and your black tank valve open. And of course, reading the caution sticker letting you know that you have to do that. The reason being, if you're pushing pressure inside of the tank and that pressure's got nowhere to go, it could expand the tank to the point of cracking, which again, we do want to avoid. So just making sure that you do have the black tank connected and the valve open. And the reason you're going to be using that is just to help flush that tank out. So that's going to help with false monitor panel readings or just an odor around the unit. You don't have to use it every time, but it is a good idea to use it every few times for sure, just to keep things that little bit cleaner. Right down below, you get your main sewer outlet. Just taking that cap, twisting it off, which sometimes it is a little tight. But once you do get it off, those are gonna be the same ears your sewer hose have. They just line up like so into place and then lock into place. And then you have your gray valve and your black valve. You always want to empty your black valve first. It's gonna be your dirtiest water filled from your toilets. And then of course you can come behind that with your gray valve, which is typically a little bit cleaner water filled from your sinks and your showers. Next, you do have your stabilizer jack here. You're gonna have one at all 4 corners of the unit. Just keep it in mind, they are stabilizing jacks, they aren't leveling jacks. If you try and use them as a leveling jack, you do run the risk of bending them. And then just keep it in mind, if you're running it up and down with an impact, keep it in mind how much torque you run out in it because you do run the risk of bending them. But how you use them is you hook up that 3/4 inch drive tool to the 3/4 inch drive nut. We include a manual one inside the front compartment, but it is just a 3/4 inch socket to get on there. Running this foot down to the ground. Once the foot does contact the ground, just give me another 1/8 turn. It's gonna snug it up and take any bounce or sway you see we have in the unit right now away. Now coming around all the way to the front, where you're gonna get access to the first side of your storage compartment, flipping it open. You get this little sprayer. I'll take you quickly just over to the other side. You get this little spray nozzle here, flipping that cap open. You got a notch on either side of this, and then it lines up with the notches on this side. Once you do line those notches up, you just have to push it into place, twist to lock it in, and then you'd have sprayable cold water at this end here. Let's say you didn't like this end because it's just not your style. You can put any garden hose style end, that's all the threads is on the end of this, or in case you're gonna break it. Again, any garden hose style end will fit on here. It's a nice little feature they did include Forest River. And whenever you're done using it, I always recommend holding the hose open and just blowing into the tube to take any water that's outside of here. That's gonna stop water from getting inside of your unit. It's also gonna help things from getting stale or moldy. And then also inside on this side, you get your starter kit. It's gonna come with that 15-amp park adapter I already told you about. And then of course you get a 15-foot water hose and a 10-foot sewer hose that come included, and some other miscellaneous goodies. Nice little feature Transcona does throw in. And then coming around to the front of the unit, you get your battery disconnect switch on the wall here. With it in the on position like it is now, the batteries are connected to the unit. If you were to turn that to the off position, it does disconnect the battery from the unit. The battery is located inside this house here. Underneath this cover, it's going to be your 2 standard propane tanks. Typically, you can get what you need done just by loosening off the 2 tabs on the top, flipping that guy open. You get access to the top of the tanks. Realistically, that's usually all you need to do. But let's say you have to change the tanks out. This cover does just slide off place. Losing off the wing nut up top here, taking off the support bar, disconnecting your bottles. You'll be able to fill them up. Beautiful feature about this unit here. On the front of your regulator, you got the selector valve. With it pointed to this tank, you're obviously drawing off this tank. You go counterclockwise nice and slowly to open up the flow to the unit. Now let's say this tank were to go empty. You just have to close it off, disconnect it, pull it off, and then you could switch this to the other side and start running off this tank while this one's getting filled up. Power tongue jack right at the front. One way is up, the other way is down. There's also a little manual override underneath that cover in case it were to fail for whatever reason. Opening up this compartment, it's a little bit bigger of a side. You're gonna notice you got a dry erase surface, so get some dry erase markers for there. Kids love it. It's also a good way, maybe if you and your husband or partner, I should say, want to do a combined list of some sorts, things you need. Once you do get inside here, tons of storage space inside of here. Just keep it in mind, way up front here, you got your power ram that is for your versa-tilt bed up top. You're not going to want to be getting anything too close to that because it does move, so you don't want to damage that in any way. Up on the wall here, you get your tools for your manual override for your tongue jack, and then of course your tool for your stabilizer jacks. And then behind on the other side here, it's hard to see in the camera, but if you turn that switch on, it's on its own center push button. It turns on a light so you can see what you're doing under here. And then you do have a little secondary switch as well. Turning that black switch on turns on some nice illumination lights down the side of the trailer. At night, it's going to be a great way to light up your campsite a little bit, maybe add some spice to things. Your friends will probably think it's pretty sweet. Power buttons to turn them all off. Coming a little bit further down the unit, you got your entryway door, which I'll go over in a few minutes. Opening up this guy here, folding that guy down. You do have a mini fridge on the outside here. Just keep it in mind, it does only work whenever you're plugged in, and there is no temperature setting. Once it's plugged in, it's running. But again, it only works off shore power, so it's only gonna work when you're plugged in. It's not gonna work while you're traveling. Then down below, you get your griddle. Lifting open the travel lock. You're always gonna wanna make sure you use that whenever you are traveling. That way it can't slide around and damage this door. Pull this guy open. You got your propane quick connect line. We just leave it connected on the one side, so you just have to run this down. And then on the other side here, you get the other side of this. I forgot to do this up just earlier because I wanted to test it to make sure it worked before you picked it up. Typically, you're always going to want to make sure you clip that back into place. That way you're not getting any debris inside of there. But once you have that off, you can pull back on the collar like any standard airline, push the other end into place. Once it's locked in, you can open up your flow of propane, and you'd be able to go up and fire up your griddle like any standard barbecue. Now, as an added safety feature, you can't operate the coupler with the flow of propane open, so you do have to close it. And that'll allow you to disconnect everything. And again, just making sure you put your dust cap back into place. And that does go for both ends. Then once you're all done with that, you're just gonna want to tuck that hose behind here. Try and stick it as far back as you can. Close this up. You'll be able to close everything up. You'd be good for travel. Got your furnace exhaust. So whenever your furnace is running, it's going to be blowing out hot air. The reason I'm mentioning that specifically too is because it is right underneath the awning. I know it's kind of an inconvenient spot. So if you go to fire up your furnace, maybe just double check, make sure you don't have any furniture outside of it because they will melt it because it comes out pretty hot out of there. You got your vent lid here for your range hood. You're always going to want to make sure you unclip this when you get to your campsite. That way you can evacuate all those propane fumes as you're making them, which again, I'm going to go over again once we get inside. But if you're traveling again, just trying to remember to snap that back into place. Sometimes it takes a little bit of force and you just got to be careful with it at the same time. Lining them up. and pushing it firmly into place. That's going to seal it off. Now that's also going to stop any excess dust from getting inside of the unit. You got a little TV pre-mount here, so in case you want to get a TV for the outside, you can also run down to your cable outlet as well as your couple little TV or plugins. Then you got your fresh water fill, so if you're out boondocking, your site just doesn't have water, take this cap off, put a garden hose in there, and you can fill up that fresh tank, and that's what your water pump draws off of. The drain for the fresh tank is right down below. Coming down here, it's right behind this back tire. You got that white valve, pulling it, opens it up. It's gonna allow all the water to drain out of the fresh tank, and then you can close it up once it's all done draining. And then way at the very back here, you got your service port for your hot water heater. Opening it up, just go over a quick few winterizing notes. If you've had a camper before and you did the winterizing yourself, you probably had a tanked water heater, in which case there's bypass valves because you didn't want antifreeze entering the system. This is the total opposite. There's going to be no bypass valves behind this heater, and if there is, you don't touch them. You do want to run antifreeze through it. Of course, just making sure you do turn off the main power switch to the off position so it doesn't fire while you're trying to run antifreeze through it. That's going to be what supplies power to the thermostat inside. And then once you're done running antifreeze through everything, including this guy here, you're going to want to just hit that pressure relief valve and leave it cracked open for the duration of winter. That way you're just as the antifreeze gels up during those extremely cold winter months, it does have a place to go and doesn't expand and crack your coil. Now coming back to the main entryway door, you're just taking that assist handle, pushing up fully at 90 degrees. It's going to lock into place. It's going to allow you to open up your door. You do have to have your door open all the way to get your stairs to fold down. Nice thing about these stairs, they do have adjustable feet, so you can have nice and level stairs for your campsite. Just having to use these little pinchers here to push them in. It's going to allow it to fall into the different tracks. Pulling the blue handle, pull the stairs down towards you. Keep in mind they aren't power assisted. Once that's down, you can take a step on inside. First thing you notice off on the left is that fire extinguisher, which is pretty much just like home. Pull the pin and shoot. And then up on the wall, you kind of get your main monitor panel systems. This switch here does turn on the main living space lights, and it's also on a dimmer, so you can go dim or bright. Wherever you leave them, that's where it's going to stay. Got your monitor panel system up top. It's going to tell you have a black 2 and a galley, but you actually don't. You do just have a black 1 and a gray. Pushing that, it's going to tell you the corresponding level of the tank. The same goes for the fresh and the battery. You got your JBL sound system. You do have to have your phone hooked up to it. There is no radio function. You have to connect through Bluetooth. Power button to turn it on, pretty self-explanatory. It just works just like a JBL Bluetooth speaker, which most of us have used before. You got your awning switch. So pushing and holding that out, the awning is going to start making its way out. Once it is at its full extension, you can see the back of the metal tube and the little flap hanging down. Now sometimes the flap can get stuck, so you might just have to retract it a couple feet, then try putting it back out again, and it should come down. Whenever you're putting your awning out, you're always going to want to make sure you keep an eye on the wind speeds. Once they do start picking up, you'll probably want to make sure you bring that in. Otherwise, you do run the risk of bending your arms or ripping your fabric, which gets pretty costly pretty quick. So now that you can see the back of the metal tube, you know you're at your full extension. Now, if it were to start raining, you can take any arm, front or rear, pull down at the center. It's going to change the pitch of the awning head, allowing water to now run off. Now, if you like that angle better because it's going to allow for more shade underneath, you can do the same thing with the front arm, just making sure that you do push them both back to straights before you try to bring your awning in. That way you don't run the risk of bending anything. Now, let's say it was raining, winds pick up, so you don't want to bring it in. If you bring it in while it's wet, always try and bring it back out at your next earliest convenience to allow it time to dry off. That way you don't accelerate the growth of mold or mildew inside of it. And whenever you are rolling it in, just always being visual, making sure it's rolling the right way in. And if you roll it in while it's wet, again, just making sure that you roll it back out to allow it time to dry off. Now that that's rolling in, once the arms contact the side of the trailer, the motors are going to automatically cut out. You can move over to your slide out switch. Before you ever run your slide out in or out, you're always going to be wanting to be mindful of what's on either side of the slide, inside and out. The reason I say inside is sometimes things do tend to shift during travel. And sometimes you put places that could come into contact with that slide out. So before you run it, always try and do a visual check. And whenever you're running it, also keeping that visual check, making sure things are running smooth and even. And of course, making sure on the other side of the slide out, you have enough room for it to go all the way out. Other than that, you just push the out button, the slide out's going to start making its way out. Once it does hit its full extension, you're going to hear the motors wind up and click. In addition to the you got 3 switches up top here. One's going to be for your water pump, and that's what your water pump draws out of your fresh tank. Then you're going to have your awning LED light switch, and then of course you're going to have some accent lighting, which turns on some lighting inside the slide out. Now we can just start off in the bedroom. We'll open up that door, allow our cameraman to get in here quickly. All the blinds in the unit are going to work the same way. They're just going to kind of sit where you leave them. One quick pull will allow them to retract back up. Now you're going to have tons of storage throughout this unit. Of course, whenever you're using any of the storage, just being mindful of drains, water lines, and wiring, things like that. You're not going to be wanting to affect any of that. Cool little feature Forest River did on this one. You got a little laundry chute, which you can collect through the compartment there. You got plugins on either side of the bed in case you had sleep apnea stuff. This is going to be your fire exit for the unit. You're going to notice these red tabs. Pull them, push on up. Once that's open, take your screen, push it on up with you. Now you can hop on out of the unit. Of course, if there's a fire, you are going to want to try and get out as fast as possible, but it's a good idea to always try and go feet first. That way you're not landing on your head, causing yourself more issues. And storage all throughout. Then you got your first tilt bed control on the wall here. Power button to make that go up. Then you got down, just sits wherever you leave it. And then if you pick up at the foot of the bed, you do get some extra storage totes as well as access to the inside of that front compartment. Now into the main living space, you got our entertainment center over here. 50-inch TV. Down below you got your fireplace. Far right button does turn on. Power button to turn it off. The button right next to it is going to go between your different flame colors. The button right in the middle does your different rock light colors. Then 2 in from the left, you got your different heat options. Pushing it twice goes into low. One more time will go into high. And then you got a timer that goes anywhere from 30 minutes to 9 hours with that far left button. Power button again to turn it all off. Storage all around. In our slide out area, you got accent lighting, again on its own center push buttons up here in case you were reading or whatever else. And now this is what we call a Versa Lounge. So there's a bunch of different options you can set it up with. Right now, you're currently set up in a sectional. So you got a big sitting space for the couch with littler space in the eating area. Now both fold out into a bed. You can either fold the couch out into a bed by picking up at the foot of it and just allowing it to fold out and then folding it back in to get it back into a couch. And then you can turn this area into a bed as well just by removing the bottom table legs and setting the tabletop on its desired ledges. And when I say it's a Versa Lounge, there's a bunch of different things. You can get very creative with it and put it however you like it. This cushion here is removable. It's got stake pockets on either side. So if you slide it out of this side here, you could just move the cushion out of the way and slide it back over to here, and it's going to create more seating space for the eating area and less couch space. Like I said, a bunch of different things you can do with it. You can get creative with it and make it your own. Into the kitchen area, tons of storage all throughout. You're going to think, where's my microwave? Just got to pull up on the metal cover. It's on its own gas struts, lifts up, hides it away. You also get a little spice rack up top if that's what you want to put up there. Microwave is going to be pretty much just like home. Not much I'm going to show you there. And then you do have your range hood. I always recommend running your range hood whenever you're running your stove or your oven. That way you're evacuating those propane fumes as you're making them. And since we're talking about propane fumes, we got our LP detector right here near the ground. If this guy does ever start going off, don't panic. Just turn off the main supply of propane at the front of the unit. Open up some windows and vents to get some fresh oxygen inside of here. Now, when it does come time to lighting your stove, there's a few notes we do have to go over. First things first is safety. Whenever you burn off propane, it takes oxygen out of the air. That's what the LP detector is doing. And now whenever you turn off your gas system at the front of the trailer, or if you disconnect one of the bottles, it does allow air into the system. Once air makes its way into the system, it does have to be purged out. Whenever you get to your campsite and you've had your propane off, I always recommend coming and run your stove first thing. So you can flip that cover back, come to your knobs. The reason I'm telling you to fire up your stove is you can decide how long you fire it for, how long you leave the gas open, and how many cycles it goes through. If you go to fire up your water heater or your furnace on propane, those will only try lighting themselves a couple times before they're going to throw a fault code at you if it doesn't sense a flame. in which case it's going to cause some frustration if you don't know what the fault code means. We do want to try to avoid that and keep the frustration to a minimum and the good times with your family and friends to a maximum. So come to your stove, turn the gas knob over to the high option, hit the igniter. Of course, it fired up quickly today just because I had the system running earlier. Typically, it can take a few minutes to purge all the air out of the lines, so just be patient with it. But just an extra note, whenever you have this gas valve on, you're always going to want to make sure you're hitting that sparker every few seconds. Failure to do so, if you started to get gas through here and you didn't have that igniter going, it could cause it to start to build up. And when you did go to hit the igniter, it could cause a minor combustion. And if you have your face near it, you're probably going to lose some eyebrows and eyelashes. So again, just coming back to the safety thing, whenever you're running the valve on, you're just going to want to make sure you're hitting that sparker every few seconds. That way, you're not going to get that buildup of gas and everybody's safe and sound. Turn that all off, come into the stove. Lights the same way pretty much, except it can take exceptionally long to purge just because the gas orifice for the pilot is so small. Turn it over to the pilot option, which is the little flame, push and hold the button in. Give it a few seconds. Once a few seconds pass, just keep running that thing, the sparker, until you get your pilot. Once the pilot's able to hold its own without the button being pressed in, you can turn it up to your desired temperature and it does fire right on up. As a little extra, you can turn on the oven light and the illumination knobs, or just the illumination knobs in case you wanted a little bit of a vibe going inside of here. Being careful with the cover because it is glass. It's very fragile. You got your fridge, popping that guy open. Fridge, freezer combo, right down below. The controls for both are just right here, with it obviously in the coldest setting. That's going to be its coldest setting. It's also going to be what makes the fridge the fastest. The coldest, the fastest. So let's say you've had the fridge off. You forgot to turn the fridge back on when your partner told you to. So you could come here, turn it over to the 5 option, let it get cold. Once it's cold, you can turn it back down to whatever temperature you desire to have it on, and it'll just maintain that. Then you're going to notice just some off-grid writing here. That's just going to be the most energy efficient setting to have it on if you're running off battery power. And then you have a charcoal filter in the top left corner. They are replaceable. We sell replacement ones here at the shop. If you'd like to get set up with one, you can just contact your parts department. They'd be more than happy to help you out. Right down below, you do got your fuse and breaker panel. Popping that guy out, down. Whenever you have a breaker trip, it's going to sit in the middle, so you do just have to turn it off and then back on again to reset it. You have all your corresponding fuses on your right. You're going to notice this little false panel here. Taking those 2 screws out of the way, this is going to give you access to your water pump for winterization. Sorry, that was false. It's actually right here. You take those 2 screws out, this whole panel is going to pop out of the way. And then you got a pantry space. Again, the light inside here is just on its own center push button, so you can turn it on and off as you please. Then you got your bunk spaces, of course, which is pretty much self-explanatory. Lights in both, and then you do have USB plugins as well. Now this is going to be kind of weird. You're going to notice a light there. You're going to think, where's the light switch? The light switch for that light is actually in the bathroom here. In addition to turning on that bathroom light, it's also going to turn on your selfie light as well as the light above the sink. This is going to be pretty much just like home. You have a GFI, your main GFI plug right down here. If you ever have a outlet that doesn't work, 90% of the plugs are protected through GFI. This is the main one. Reset up top, test down below. Again, if you have an outlet, just making sure that it's not tripped, so hitting that reset button. And then up on the wall here, right by the sink, you're going to have both your thermostats. The first one is going to be for your water heater, on and off with the press of a button. You can change your set temperature, again, with up and down. As an added safety feature, so kids can't scald their hands, you are locked to 50 degrees Celsius. Now, if you have any kids watching the video with you, you maybe want to turn them away, because if you push and hold the up button for about 5 seconds, it is going to unlock that thermostat and allow you to go up another 5 degrees to 55. That's going to be pretty hot though, so just being mindful whenever you are having it that hot. Celsius and Fahrenheit with the press of a button, power button again to turn it back off. Then you got your thermostat for your Coleman AC, as well as your furnace down here. So you're going to have your different fan settings on the right. So with it, whenever it's in the auto setting, it's going to turn the system into an on-demand system. So if the room's currently 80 and you have it set to 70 with the air conditioner, Once the thermostat senses the room's at 70, it'll automatically kill the air conditioner. If you have the fan mode on either high or low without the auto and it's just on, the air conditioner does run continuously regardless of that. Then you have your mode settings, of course, on your left. So one in from the right is off. Turning it to the right will fire up the furnace. The furnace does run off propane, so again, making sure you have that system purged before you go to fire that up. That way you just get that for sure lighting feature. The furnace moves all its air through the floor portals you have throughout the unit. The air conditioner moves all its air through the ceiling ducting you have throughout the unit. And as an addition to that, you can run these louvers open, in which case you're going to dump all your air into the main living space. So if you first get to your campsite, I recommend cooling the main living space first, and then you can close these off, in which case it'll move its air through the ceiling ducting so you can push the air throughout the unit. Right here, you got these two plastic covers. Just pushing them in on the tabs and pulling down. It's going to allow you to pop that down. You're going to have those two black screens in there. Those are just the intake screens. They're also the filters. So once they start getting dusty, it's a good idea to give them a blowout with some compressed air. That way you're keeping the flow nice and steady throughout with the air conditioner. And then the furnace does only have one fan speed, regardless of what you have the fan set to on the wall. Temperature setting up top, that's pretty much it there. And last but not least, you do have your bathroom, toilet right at the back. And then you have a shower to your right, a little skylight up top. And right above my head, turning this clockwise, opens up the vent lid. Now if you do open that up, and you were to forget that open during travel, you run the risk of damaging the lid. And then let's say it were to start raining, it's going to get pretty wet inside of here. You do sell covers that go over top of these. Not only is that going to protect you against hail as well, but it's going to protect you against damaging it during driving. And then if it were raining and you were showering, of course, to be able to run it still, because it's not going to get wet inside of here. If you'd like to get set up with that, just contact your parts department. They'd be more than happy to help you out. That is going to be it for this unit here. If you have any other questions, feel free to give us a call.